back on again with another video on the polishing. Yeah. Anyways, hey guys. So on a Ford F-150, red. Don't know what kind of red. I think it was like tri-coat. But here we are. What I do on this? I think looks like I skimmed the whole side down. 1500, 3000. Oh, well, 1500 denibbed, 3000. Or I probably denibbed it first. I can't remember. It's been a while since I did this vehicle, so I'm not going to remember. But that's probably the general process. So here we are cutting with wool. And you'll probably notice I have a polisher that you guys haven't ever seen before on my channel yet. I picked this up. When did I pick it up? I picked it up this year. It's the Festool RAP 150 21FE. This thing is a boss. For anyone who's watched my channel, I typically tend to use the Bauer rotary. And it's been my favorite one, and probably still is. But this is my contender now. This thing is sick. I can't say enough good things about it. $545, man. I never thought I was gonna spend that much ever for a polisher, but I'm gonna keep it real, man. I watch a lot of Shine Doc on Instagram, and I really I thought that if I bought it, I'd be able to produce results like him, and I was wrong. So now I'm stuck with it. No, I'm kidding. But I bought it. Well, I watch a lot of his videos, and the tool just seems so cool, man. It was either between this or the Flex 14-2. And I was up in the air for a minute. I just didn't know which one because they feel so similar. And I just kind of said, you know, I wanted a rotary that wasn't as heavy as like a DeWalt or a Makita, but I didn't want something so small that it felt like I might as well have just bought a kid's buffer from Weenie Hut Jr., you know, or like a Burger King, or got it in a Happy Meal. So Flex and or Festool was the option that I was looking at. Also, I wanted a buffer. I realized that all my buffers were Harbor Freight, and I needed something. Well, I didn't need it. I wanted something that would be my general polisher that I basically could have like that mental insurance on that says, hey, this is a tool built right. This is a tool built for the long run. You know, this isn't something that's going to crap out and you have to go get your warranty and swap it out for a new one. Like you for sure have something that's legit. That's pretty up there. And I do this pretty much every day, so it's like, you know what? Why not just get a professional tool? You can save up a little bit for it, buy it, and then play with it like crazy. And I use this thing on the daily. It's pretty freaking awesome. First off, I think the thing's under 5 pounds. It's my lightest buffer, I think. Maybe the cordless one would be lighter if it didn't have the battery, because the battery itself is actually kind of heavy. So, but this is probably my lightest buffer, and that's even with the cord. It's so like, gosh, you could just one hand the whole thing if you wanted. You can just cradle it, and it's so gentle, and yet it's so powerful. Like, it's a monster. Like, I can't describe it, man. Like, the experience, I mean, with any rotary, it's going to be like this, but something with this rotary, man, I feel like it really holds its RPMs well. I feel like with any rotary, when you kind of get towards the lower end ones, or maybe not even the lower end ones, but ones that aren't necessarily $500, they might not be true to the RPM that's on it. I've heard Shine Doc kind of bring this up. And the people that I've let try this tool so far, I don't see them go above like speed 3, which is like 1500. And these are guys that typically use like DeWalt's on like 2200. And they're like using that tool. They're like, man, that feels like it's just enough. You know, if you don't even have to turn it, you don't even have to turn it that high, right? And I think a big part of that is just like it holds its power under load very well, better than other rotaries, you know. And I feel like you don't lose power through the motor to the shaft. Like, it's all consistent. It all delivers the way that it should, or maybe not the way it should, but just very efficiently, very effectively. It feels like, and I don't know polisher design all that well. I mean, I kind of have an idea because I've taken apart polishers before and put them back together. I won't do it with this one because I'm way too scared because it's just such a fucking awesome machine and I don't want to mess with it. But yeah, man, yeah, I think that is probably the number one thing that stands out the most to me is just power under load, man. It holds it real well. And I don't feel like it loses power, like I said, through the motor, through the shaft, any of that. It just, it delivers it. And, yeah, it's been a very exciting choice. Also, I mean, it's just nice to not have, I mean, I'm used to it now. If you guys have watched some of my earlier videos, on polishing, like, I have this one video where I was using my Bauer and I was using the D handle because I got sick of how heavy it kept feeling on my bottom hand. I don't have that issue anymore. I've just gotten used to it. I don't use the handle with my Bauer anymore, any handle at all. And I just kind of got used to running it the way that I like to run it. No handle. I've gotten used to the weight, but I will say it's a relief to have a 4-pound, well, less than 5-pound buffer in your hand that you can just run, man. And it glides, it moves so smooth. And also, this is my quietest buffer. Like, you'd be surprised, like, when you hear DeWalt, like, it's like, it's got a high pitch to it. It's loud, you know, but this, it's a lower, more aggressive tone, but it's not as loud. Like, you'd be surprised, like, because I've had people use it next to me, or maybe, like, you know, they'd be 5 foot away, and it sounds loud when you're the one using it, but when you're standing back, you know, you'll hear a DeWalt across the shop. You don't hear this that as prominent at all. So that's another thing that's really surprising, is just how quiet it is. This is by far the smoothest tool I have. It's the smoothest tool I've fucking used. You know, you could maybe argue Rupes only for the fact that it is incredibly smooth for a DA, but a rotary is always going to be smoother than a DA. And this tool is just made incredibly well. So I just, you know, I love it, man. I can't say enough good things about it. It's been one of the most enjoyable tools I've used, and I just can't wait to keep using it more and more and more. And so, yeah, I mean, thanks, shout out to ShineDoc, man, for putting me on. Yeah, I mean, it's just been one of the best decisions I've made for tools. The only other one that probably comes close is that Rupes Mini Pneumatic. Because that thing's a killer. That's still one of my staples right now in my toolbox when it comes to just doing polishing work. So I really enjoy using that. But yeah, that's that as far as the Festool, man. Let's talk a little bit more about what we're doing here. So, ripping through 3,000 grit scratches using some twisted wool here. Big reason I'm using twisted wool here is really just for pad diameter. I got a lot of real estate to cover, and I know that I want the cut, so twisted wool just felt like the right choice for this day. And so I slapped it on and just started ripping through, you know, these larger and honestly flatter panels. Like, you know, if it was something closer to maybe like an Accord, I'd probably use like a 5-inch, but a 5-inch on this, it wouldn't be bad. It just would have taken me more time than I would have probably wanted to, when I know I could just shred through it with this twisted wool here. So that was my choice. Using 3M rubbing compound. It's just what the shop uses, because availability. Honestly, I kind of wish I could just have an infinite supply of Obert Cut or Jessica Performance Cut. Either one of those I think would make me happy. But you know, life doesn't work that way. Or even Griot's fast correcting cream. That would be lit. If I could have any one of those three in just the gallons that I could just guzzle through with wool pads, I'd do it. That didn't sound so right. But anyways, but yeah, ripping through 3000 grip. And you know, why wool when it's such a fine scratch, right? I've been asked this before, not often, but you know, why would you it's like you don't need a wool pad for 3000 grit scratches. You know, you could just get that out with like a fine polish and a foam pad. Yes and no. I think that yes, you could do it, but my mindset with it is when I refine something out to 3000, when I come in with my initial rotary cut, if I've refined it right, my cutting step is going to be very brief. Whereas, oh, well, let me try to one-step it with foam, I'm going to be there for a while. And then if there's 1500 in there that hasn't been refined out as well as it could have been, for whatever reason, maybe my disc was going bad, as I got closer to the end of the side or whatever, or fucking maybe I just got lazy. Whatever the case may be, maybe there was something near like a body line or a sculpture, just somewhere where like, hey, this is more this is 1500, this is not really 3000 scratches here. You know, sorry, my cat's distracted me. You know, what was I saying? Oh, so rather than using foam just to try to, you know, bog it down and work out the 3000, yeah, you can use foam and you can try it, but with wool, I'm gonna keep it cooler. I've got more abrasive, and it's going to keep my cutting step brief, which allows me to just kind of move through the job a little faster. And, oh, the 1500, yeah. So if there's like, if I'm buffing something and I see 1500 there, as I'm watching through my lights, and I can tell, oh, hey, this isn't 3000. This is going to need a little bit more work. Well, hey, I'm using wool. I've got the abrasiveness and the power of the rotary to just come through and knock it down and, you know, take care of business. So that's one of the reasons I prefer wool, man. It's just again kind of insurance, right? If I didn't do so good on my 3000 maybe for whatever reason or in a certain area, hey, no worries, wool will take care of it. Just watch your heat. But obviously refinement is always the name of the game. Refine. And for the most part, like I said, I'm just looking for, in a lot of cases, I feel like wool, actually not in a lot of cases, I feel like in every case, wool after 3000 beautifully finishes it off. It just, and I think I'm actually going to show it towards the end of the video. I don't know how long, I don't know if I DA cut this in this video or not, to be honest, but, or DA mid-step. But if you like, depending on the paint, obviously, but if you ever do 3000 and then you buff it out with wool after, whether it's twisted wool or lamb's wool or whatever, you buff it out and you look at that panel with the light, it actually, it has a lot of clarity to it already. And you can actually be, in a weird way, because you're using less heat, you can just kind of flow with the rotary, which means you don't have to be as aggressive in a way. I mean, like, you're being aggressive. You're using a fucking rotary. You're sanding. But you don't have to be as, like, you don't have to beat up the paint as much. You know, you use the abrasiveness of the wool to level it out, and then you move on. But you don't have to really stress the panel or the paint out that much to do it. That's just my thought process anyways. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. It's just, that is how I look at it when it comes to, hey, I feel comfortable using wool. And you know what? I'll be real honest. I just feel like a man when I grab a wool pad, dude. When I slap that sucker on you, rah! I feel like a damn dragon, boy. I feel like I'm feel like I got some dragons to slay. But yeah, I like wool pads, man. They're just awesome, and I really enjoy being able to use them. I don't always grab for 4-ply twisted wool. It's not always the appropriate thing for the circumstance. Again, lately I've been using a lot of the Buff and Shine gray Euro wool pads. Those have just been killer. I feel like they cut really good, and they give me just a beautiful finish, and you know, they allow me to sneak up on the edges, sneak up on the body lines. I can be pretty precise with them. Sometimes I still have to follow up to the 3-inch in certain areas. The only real downside is just no interface, but then I just run a bigger pad than the plate, and it wraps around, and it kind of acts as almost a guard in a way. So that's been my thing there. Wool for cut, man. Wool for cut. You can use foam. The biggest thing is just watch your heat. You know, I personally, I started cutting with foam on rotaries. Like when I first started doing this kind of work on fresh paint, I would cut with foam and use like the purple Perfect-It polish. But after a certain point, once I slowly started introducing myself to wool pads and compounds and getting confident with using that on fresh paint, I just feel like it's just no turning back for me. It just feels right, you know. And obviously, you know, it really comes down to understanding your process. It comes down to understanding why you're using what you're using, how it's feeling when you're using it, and ultimately the results it's giving you. And if you're hitting all those points for yourself, dude, I don't care if you use a purple wool pad or fucking a rainbow one, or, you know, like whatever the fuck you use. Like, you know, the biggest thing for me is as long as your process is effective and safe, then like I can't complain, right? So that's another thing. Like, so, you know, when I bring up these moments where I'm like, you know, well, somebody asks me, well, why this instead of this, or, you know, somebody might ask, or maybe I want to clarify a part of my process, because I know it's easy to look at this rotary wool, wow, it's so aggressive, it's eating up all the clear and whatnot, and, you know, I like to give a little bit of clarity to my process so that it's a little easier to understand, like, oh, okay, I see why you're choosing to do that, or, oh, that makes sense, I get why you're going for that. Or maybe after that you're like, no, like this dude might still be an idiot, but at least maybe I've given you a little bit more insight onto what might work for me. And maybe even in your own work, you know, maybe watching a video from me or from somebody else sharing this information. I mean, granted, I don't consider myself like that great. I'd say I'm probably amateur, borderline intermediate. So take my advice with a grain of salt. But you know, with what I share, hopefully maybe someone out there is like, oh man, I never thought about trying that. And they try it, and then either they fucking hate it and they're like, I'm never listening to this dude's advice again, block him, or they're like, man, that was really good. That actually helped a lot. Man, I'm glad I watched that dude's video. I'm gonna give him a like, I'm gonna comment, I'm gonna subscribe, and I'm gonna do that for like 3 more videos. And drop off the first surface of the earth and pretend like I never even ran into this dude's videos and say peace. But in any case, yeah, just finishing off, man. So here we are with the light. You can see the halos are there, but the shine is there, and a quick mid step will take a lot of that out, and it'll look good, man. So there's a little comparison of the 3000 and what we buffed out. And yeah, that's the episode, man. See you guys in the next one. Peace.